Primulya, mga foul naman yung pinagsasabi. Bagay, ano ba naman aasahan mo sa mga DDS? Ha? Kaya lang, medyo ano rin talaga, hindi maganda yung dating nung ginawa ni Junvic Rimulya. Tingnan nyo, yan, eksakto yun. Ganyan yung ginawa ni Junvic Rimulya kahapon. Alam nyo, mga kabunyog, mga kababayan, siyempre ikaw, bilang Secretary of Interior and Local Government, hawak mo ang PNP, sa'yo nakaatang yung trabaho na i-secure yung Malacanang, na huwag magkaroon ng mga kaguluhan. Sabi ni SAL 4017, maybe he just want to see the situation from above. Hindi, mayroon na ngayong mga camera, mayroon ng mga CCTV, kahit na nasa loob ka lang ng situation room, pwede na yan. Makikita mo na hindi naman titingnan nung mga tao na parang mayabang ka. Kaya yan mga kabunyog, mga kababayan, ito, medyo talaga. Kaya lang, normal naman siyempre, i-secure ni Junvic Rimulya yung paligid ng Malacanang kasi baka mapasok, baka magkaroon ng kaguluhan katulad nung September 21. Pero ang lang natin, ang sinasabi lang natin, sana hindi na siya umakyat doon sa container van at pag-akyat niya doon, parang inaano niya naman na-intimidate naman yung mga tayo, alam niyo naman pro Duterte yon, mga grupo na yon, pero kahit naman ganun, pa rin yan, mamamayan pa rin yan ng Pilipinas. Kailangan rin yung date. Karapatan din naman lang mag-rally. Karapatan din naman nilang mag-rally, karapatan nilang maghayag kung anong gusto nila. Kaya lang, medyo hindi maganda yung medyo hindi maganda yung dating. Hindi maganda. Kaya lang, yun naman mga DDS, nung nakita ganyan si Rimulya, sobra naman, pinagmumura na si Boying Rimulya, sobrang gustos na. Hindi naman maganda. Tama ka, Pipret. Parang feeling powerful na makapangyarihan ni Rimulya. Kumbaga, wag naman ganon. Hindi ang na yan, Secretary of Interior and Local Government. Pangit yung impression ng nakaganong ka, tapos tumayo ka doon. Wag ganon. At saka hindi mo na kailangan umakyat doon sa container van. Ibang dating. Mga kabunyog, mga kababayan. Sabihin natin wala naman siyang masamang intensyon, yun na nga. Kaya nga sinasabi natin na OAD naman yung ginawa ng mga DDS, pinagmumura siya. Narinig ko yung speech ng mga DDS. Hindi ito nung panahon ng nung panahong mga leftist pa ang nandun, kasi nandun yung mga leftist nung alas 3 ng hapon, ito yon. Hindi ginawa ni Rimulya yun. Kaya sa kayong mga leftist, hindi naman yan yung panahon ng alas 3 ng hapon, yan yung mga leftist. O alas 2, ganyan. Yan. Si Rimulya, hindi naman hindi naman ganun ang ginawa ni Rimulya. Siya, minumonitor niya mula sa distansya. Hindi siya mismo nandun. Pero pag alis ng mga itong mga nagraling ito na mga leftist, pumasok naman yung mga Duterte, maliit na grupo na lang. Siguro mga 300. Doon na umakyat si Junvic Rimulya sa container van. At pag akyat niya, ayan, nakikita nyo, sisigaw dyan, pinagmumura si Junvic Rimulya dyan. Anyway, yan yung nangyari mga kabunyog kahapon. Nang napanood ko yung video niyan, sabi ko, medyo talaga hindi naman maganda yung dating nung ginawa ni Junvic Rimulya. Kaya lang, sabi niya naman, pinumonitor niya yung sitwasyon, gusto niyang makita, kaya umakyat siya sa container van. Kaya lang yun na nga, ang sinasabi natin, yung dating lang nung ginawa niya na nandun, umakyat siya tapos nakaganyan. Yan yung sana hindi niya na ginawa yun. Pero sobra naman yung reaksyon ng mga DDS. Ang haba. Ang haba nung speech ng mga DDS. Binila, PI, pinagmura si Rimulya. Junvic Rimulya, huwag kang maghari-harian. Hindi kayo hari dito sa Pilipinas. Darating din ang time nyo, ang panahon nyo. Oh, yan yung mga kabunyog. Kaya makikita mo, pikon. Siyempre, napipikon sila doon sa inasta ni ginawa ni Rimulya na kaganyan. Pag tinignan mo nga naman sa malayo, yun si Rimulya. Ay dati na silang mainit kay Rimulya kasi dalawang magpatid pa yan na Rimulya. Ang dami nang ginawa sa kanila sa mga Duterte. Ha? Oh. Ano yan mga kabunyog, mga kababayan? Siyempre, galit na sila sa kay Boying Rimulya. Galit na rin sila dito kay Junvic Rimulya. Kaya medyo mainit na sila sa Rimulya eh. Ha? Oh. At saka, totoo yan, ang problema kasi dyan sa grupo na yan, siyempre yung grupo ng mga DDS, yan yung nanggulo noong September 21. Nung ang nagrarally pa yung mga leftist, hindi masyadong si Rimulya noon. Hinayaan niya yun. Pero nung nagrally na yung mga DDS, binabantayan na ni Rimulya, tumingin siya doon sa taas, umakyat siya dyan sa Ha? Sabi ni Midnight, tama lang ginawa ni Junvic nang makita kung gaano kadami. Ano nga kukunti nga, kaya siguro na insulto sila. Kasi kukunti na nga lang sila, parang gumanyan, inakyat pa ni Rimulya yung container ba, tapos tiningnan sila, tapos sabay ganyan. Ha? Kaya nga medyo napikon yung mga DDS na insulto. Kasi kukunti nga sila. Ang tawag nga sa social media, kakapiranggo. Ha? Anyway, okay? Sige mga kabunyog, mga kababayan, magandang araw sa inyong lahat.
Bunyog, bunyog. Alright, magandang araw po sa inyong lahat mga kababayan, Batang Maynila to it's. Nabalitaan nyo na ba to mga kababayan? Parang ngayon ko lang to nabalitaan. Nagpalit na po ng pangalan ng Banateros. Ito na po sila ngayon, no? Manatejos. Ayan mga kababayan. Magkakamukha na po sila. Ayan, lahat po sila ay kamukha na ni ito, ano pangalan na ito? Ano daw? Sir daw to? Sir Jack Angona? Ano ba ang apelyido na to? Angoda ba ito? Angongo? So yun mga kababayan, hindi na po sila Banateros. Ang tawag na po sa kanila ay Manatejos. Inyay, Imanya, Inia, Montana, Imanat Bay, Tosholi, Ane Amye, Ate Sera, Jack, ano to? Hindi ko talaga kilala. Si Jack, Angongo. Ayan, mga babayan, update ko lang kayo, Wala na pong Banateros. Meron na po Manatejos, mga kababayan, Manatejos. Ano masasabi niyo sa mga Manatejos? Nabasahin natin, Ito, sabi dito, ano raw? Samahan mo. Samahan mo. Ito, ano yung niyan? Awing banat, puro wadak ang nanyanganya ng mga minimino, ma-open na niya, nakakatakot. Hirap naman. Ang hirap naman ng ganong Ang hirap naman magsalita. Buti nagkakaintindihan sila, no? Buti naiintindihan nila, nila yung Imara, Mante Unia, Mosdana, Manatmay, Oni, Mani Anyay. Yan. Buti naiintindihan nila to si Ena, Nyaka, Angongo. Buti naiintindihan nila to. Grabe talaga. Grabe yung nag-post ito, Grabe talaga kayo, Sama-sama nyo sa mga Manatejos, Huwag naman kayong ganyan, Manatejos. Mga tao rin yan. Kahit may mga sayad yan, mga tao pa rin yan. Ito. Pag manyanyan yan, yung mga naningongo ang ikninger. Ayan, tuloy mo, isipin nyo, mga kababayan, isipin ninyo. Kapag nanalo si Sara Duterte, syempre, magbabayad ng utang na loob. Pero nga utang na loob na babayaran itong si Sara Duterte dito sa mga Manatejos. At biruin mo, Ang pinakamagandang pagkakagay sa sa spokesperson ng hindi, kahit hindi manalo eh. Kunin na ng OBP to. Di ba? Kunin na ng OBP at gawing spokesperson. Eto si Jack Angongo. Di ba? Siguro ang ganda siguro, no? Siguro laging panonoorin to. Spokesperson ng Office of the Vice President. Tapos yung mga staff niya, itong mga manatehos. Yung mga may sayad. Grabe talaga kayo. Grabe kayo dito sa mga manatehos, ha? Ito mga kababayan, pag-usapan natin. Ito po nga nangyari. Kahapon po ay nag-rally po ang iba't ibang grupo at meron pong rally ang mga didilis. At ito yung nangyari Ito yung nangyari din sa ilang mga didilis. Ano nangyari sa inyo? Nangyari. Ayan, ano nangyari? Nakatambay na sila dyan sa EDSA. Bakit daw? Ba't nakatambay dyan? Ayan, maging awareness na para sa inyo, sa mga susunod na DDS o sa mga DDS na sumasama sa kilos protesta. Nagkakaproblema sila ngayon dahil wala silang pamasahe pa uwi sa kanilang bayan. Tingnan nyo, mga tangahan ninyo. Tatangan nyo kasi. Inuutulan kayo ng mga organizer. Alam niyo yung mga organizer? Yun yung mga kumikita eh. O sasabihin, merong financer, no? Mag-organize tayo ng rally, mga DDS. Alam mo, organizer dito sa DDS rally, si Eric Celis eh. Yung kalbo na maingay na, na dati raw NPA. Yun ang organizer eh. Tapos, ito, ano nangyari? Sigaw-sigaw kayo dyan, ang init-init. Tapos ngayon, wala kayong pamasahe. Hindi kayo binigyan. Wala talaga. Oy! Si Eric Celis, tawagan ninyo, hingin nyo ng pamasahe. Hindi nyo ginawa sa inyo. Kung iniiwan kayo dyan sa kalsada, tapos na rally, ayaw nyo pa magsiuwi. Bakit? Wala nang pamasahe.
Monday, nagiging manhid day. Tuesday, tusok-tusok day. Wednesday, nerve pain day. Pabalik-balik na lang.
Try Neurobion. It's 4 times B12 versus a generic brand. Helps repair nerve damage from the source so symptoms don't bother you again. Neurobion.
Kaya yung mga organizer, ay lang ang kumikita eh. Sabihin natin na meron silang budget, bigyan mo ng tagda 2,000 yung mga ating dyan, Tapos ibinibigay lang 500. Di may 1,500 na agad yung organizer. Di ba ang kapal na mukha? Kaya tuwan-tuwa yan si Celis eh. Di ba? Naka-megaphone pa ganyan, sigaw na sigaw eh. Tuwan-tuwa siya. Kasi nga, pag nag-organize sila, meron silang kita. Pagkatapos, ito. Yung mga rallyista, papabayaan na lang. Tingnan nyo, kawawa kayo dito. Nagbuka kayong tanga, ginawa kayong gago dyan. Sayang yung pagod ninyo. Paano napalanin yung mga didilis? Nga. Naniniwala kayo dito kasi sa sa Mananeros eh. May iwanan na Mananeros. Tinulungan ka lang mga ito eh. Umiina na enaminay. Kaya, ngayon maniniwala na nila amin Tama, ayun, niyaya naman ayaw mumunda. Tila lang ang umiina kayo. Kaya nyo, wala kayong mamanyahe. Di ba? Ang tatangan nyo kasi, ang bobobo ninyo. Nagpapauto kayo dyan sa mga organizer ninyo, dyan sa mga vloggers nila. Punta kayo. Suportahan natin si Duterte. Suportahan natin si Tatay Digong. Sumigaw tayo ng Marcos Design. Marcos Design. Tapos ngayon, ano nangyari? Nandyan kayo. Etong mga manahehon, yung mga nanginganak yan. Hindi na namamanyahe. Marami nilang budget. Tapos kayo, wala kayong pamasahe, wala kayong budget. Di kawawa kayo. Mga DDS, mag-isip-isip kayo. Huwag kayong magpapabudol sa mga organizer. Lalo na kay dun sa Diyan siya laging sumisigaw sa megaphone sa EDSA, yung kalbo. Naku, baka yung parte ninyo, binubulsa pa ng mga tulonggis na yan. Tapos tingnan nyo, ito kayo mga realista, tingnan nyo yung pinagkagawa ninyo. Diyan sa Maynila, galit na naman si Yormes Moreno eh. Binababoy nyo Maynila. Oh. Meron na naman nakasulat dito, House Marcos Duterte. O yan, mga halos pinagsusulatan yung mga ano eh. Yung mga lugar dyan sa Maynila. O, na nagagalit si Yormes Moreno. O, ito yung post ni Yorme. O. Sabi niya, paulit-ulit na paalala. Malaya ang magpahayag. Pero huwag babuyin ang ating lungsod. Ay, hindi taga Maynila may gawa nito. Hindi taga Maynila, mga taga-ibang lugar. Mga hinakot niya sa mga probinsya. At dinala dito para mag-rally. At babuyin ito Maynila. Sanay sila sa ganun eh. Baboy yung buhay nila eh. Kaya sa konting halaga, sumasama sila, pumapato sila. Tapos pagdating dito, pambuburaon, dudumihan yung Maynila. Wala silang pakialam. Hindi naman talaga sila nananawagan ng ng hustisya, nananawagan ng anti-corruption. Yung iba dyan, ang ginagawa lang talaga ng gugulo lang, ng bababoy. Ganun yung mga ugali ng ilang mga realista. O sabi ni Yorme, sa kabila nito, may mga bandal pa rin sa mga pader sa kabaan ng Pandipurgo Street. Ang daming bandal. Pinagsusulatan ninyo. Hindi ba pwedeng manawagan na lang kayo ng yung gusto nyo sabihin, pero huwag naman kayo magbaboy ng mga lugar na hindi naman kayo taga rito. At isa pa, ito, sino ba gumagastos niyan? Tayo rin. Perang dapat para sa serbisyo publiko, mapupunta na naman sa paglilinis ng kalat nila. Di ba? Pag nilinis yan, sino maglilinis? Isang tao. Una-una, pipinturahan. Pag pininturahan, gagastos ka ng pintura. Tapos yung labor pa. Yung papasweldo ka pa ng tao para lang pinturahan. Tapos yung kalat ninyo, hindi ka pa nililinis. Kakapal na mukha nito mga walang hiyang mga realista na mga walang disiplina. Yung perang dapat para sa serbisyo publiko, mapupunta na naman sa paglilinis ng kalat nila. Nakakapagtaka, nagpo-protesta para sa tamang paggamit ng pondo. Pero sila rin ang dahilan sa pag-aaksaya nito. Di ba? Tama naman si Orme. Nananawagan kayo na gasusin ng maayos yung pondo ng bayan, tapos ang gagawin nyo, magdudumi kayo rito. Di nag-aaksaya rin kayo ng pera ng taong bayan. Tulonggis ng mga realista ng wala yung mga ganyang pag-uugali, mga kababayan. Ayun po yung mga gawain ng mga walang pakialam. Wala pong pagmamahal sa bayan. At hindi mga taga Maynila ito. Mga dayo ito na pinagkukuha dyan kung saan-saan para lang sumama dyan sa mga rally na yan. Agad namang inayos ito ng ating kawani sa Department of Engineering and Public Works, ang mga bandal na pader. Ayan mga kababayan, ito yung pinaggagawa ninyo. Sabi dito sila dapat paglinisin ninyo. Wala na. Paano ba paglilinisin nyo? Pagkatapos ng rally, babalik na sa lugar nila kung saan-saan sila pinulot. So saan-saan na niyaya. Wala na. Dapat ang maglinis na ito yung mga organizer. Palinisin nyo si Celis. Yung lagi naka-megaphone na kalbo dyan sa EDSA na lagi namang nilalangaw ang rally. Ayun dapat ang paglinisin dyan. Wala iniiwan nilang ganyan. Nakapal na mukha. Isa din ito. Isa din ito si Boy Lighter. Ang tapang-tapang. Ito si Boy Lighter, mga kababayan, kung matatandaan ninyo noong September 21. Ito po yung nagsabi, handa na ba ang mga lighter ninyo? Yung pala, susunugin nila yung container van, yung truck. Di ba napaka-irresponsable? Ito ang tapang-tapang nito. Dapat ito masampulan ni Remulla eh. Hinahamon si John Vic Remulla eh. Sir John Vic Remulla. Ito, tandaan mo yung pagmumukha nito. Tingnan mo. Yabang-yabang kung ano sinasabi. Ito nga, Saan na yan? Ayan, takot ka raw. Oh, ito post nung ano, Kuya Park. Kuya Park daw tawag sa kanya eh. Oh, John Vic Rimulya, oh, nakatag ka pa, oh. Ay, sabi sa'yo, takot yan. Taas na bakod mo, ha. Tapang na tao, ni Rimulya. Ayan, oh. Ayan, ito yung tinatawag nilang Kuya Mark. Kuya ng mga tulongges. Ayan, oh. Kasi ito, nandito si John Vic Rimulya. Oh, sabi, takot ka raw, oh. John Vic Rimulya, takot ka raw. Sabi ni Boy Lighter. Sige nga, sampulan mo nga. Ayabang na ito. Ayabang na itong tulonggis na ito. Kala mo kung sino magsalita. Tingnan ninyo. Pag ito nakakulong, iyak to sigurado. Ito, pakinggan natin itong kupal na to. Ayan. Pakinggan natin sinasabi niya.
Ngayon, diba, hindi ko na makakapagturo kung sino ang mga kasabot at sino ang leader nila sa mga pagdala.
Guys, galit na galit to kasi hindi nila maulit yung ginawa nila dati sa Mindiola. Sila may pakanaan yan eh. Yung nagsunog-sunog ng gulong dyan sa Mindiola nung nakaraan. Hindi na nila maulit eh. Guardiado sila eh. Di barbed wire ang kaharap nila. Hindi na mga polis, barbed wire ang kaharap nila. Kaya galit na galit tong tulonggis na to eh.
At ito yung bisunod, si Bongbong Marcos ay sangkot sa pagdala ng pera. So yung panawagan nyo ngayon, pumapasok kayo. Yes, yan ang panawagan namin. Kung hindi makapalambag mo Bongbong Marcos, bumabak ka na sa peso dahil buong sambay ng Pilipino ang nagsisigaw ng Marcos inside, kaya dapat nilang bumabak sa peso mo. Yan, kung gusto mo ng anyang isang bayan, pagpapaganda ang ating bansa, mas mainam na bumabak ka sa peso para maging peaceful ang ating bansa. Dahil nakakaya sa lahat ng mga Pilipino at nakakaya sa ibang bansa ang ating bansa. Ngayon ay kuha ko at namulunod sa ating iwas kamang peso.
Wow! Grabe manawagan kay Presidente Marcos na mag-resign ha. But ano na ba ang ambag mo sa Pilipinas ha? Ano na ba ang ambag mo? Ang magsindi ng lighter at sindihan yung gulong doon sa Mindiola? Ito yung bigla na lang sumulpot eh. Yung nag-ingay. Ano lang to eh. Nagpasikat lang to. Gusto lang sumikat na ito eh. Ngayon, pinag-resign si Marcos. Wow. Nakakahiya daw si Marcos, nakakahiya daw bansa natin. Mas nakakahiya yung ginagawa ninyo. Diba? Mas nakakahiya yung ginagawa ninyo. Dahil kung magsalita kayo, akala nyo kung sino kayo, wala naman kayo ambag sa bayan. Ano na ba na ambag na ito? Ano ba pinag-aralan na ito? Hindi nga natin alam background na ito eh. Ano ba to? Saan ba nag-aaral ito? Graduate ba ito? May trabaho ba ito? Baka tambay lang ito eh. Anong trabaho mo, sir? Kuya Mark, ano ba trabaho mo? Ano ba ang background mo? Bilib na bilib yung mga tao dito kasi ang galing magsalita. Sanay na sanay. Siguro talagang talagang lumaking aktivista. Lumaking aktivista. Bastos din mo nga nito eh. Laging nagbumurita. Minumura na ito ang presidente eh. Dati may video ako, hindi ko lang makita eh. Papakita ko sana sa inyo kung gaano kabastos bunganga nito eh. Naggagaling-galingan, nagtatapang-tapangan. So, sample lang mga, Sir John Vic Rimulya. Sinasabi, takot ka daw eh. Ito, John Vic Rimulya, natakot kay Kuya Mark daw. Sige na, sample lang. Sample lang mga ito, para manahimik. Mayabang ito eh.
Ano ginagawa ko ng rally dito sa Recto? Masusundan pa ba ito? Masusundan ko ang ating may gusto bakit napapakulong ang mga kulit, yung sangkot, ano man yan. Pero hindi naman magagaya ng mga ito.
Si Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant ata ito.
So, hindi natin yun gagayahin, pero hindi natin sila mapipigilan kung kaya gagawin nila yun. Tagal-tagal ng
Daming vlogger Talagang yung vlogger eh. Talagang tawag dito, paldo. Paldo yung mga vlogger eh. Sigurado, baka may parte dito itong Kuya Mark nila. Paldo, daming cellphone. Tapos dalawa-dalawa pa yung iba Talagang mga vloggers ng DDS eh. Saka tingnan nyo yung mga vloggers ng DDS. Ba't magkakamukha kayo? Mga vloggers ng DDS, magkakamukha eh. Ayan na, magkakamukha eh. Ayan na, di ba? Yung mga vloggers ng DDS, ang dami yan. Magkakamukha yung mga vloggers eh. Ayan na, ano yung sinasabi? Sinasabi mo? Ito mayabang talaga ito. Pakinggan natin.
Baka natin nabigyan ng justisya at pinapatan sa ikulong. Kung panagot ang mga politiko hanggang ngayon, wala pa rin kami nakikita. Kaya kung meron man sa mga grupo, political organization, ang gumawa
Eh di, pakulong mo. Excited. Excited ka pala na makulong yung mga politiko. Di, magsampa ka ng kaso. Ito yung wala, mga kababayan, yung puro dakdak lang eh. Di ba? Gusto nyo na pagpanagutin, di magsampa kayo ng kaso. Sampahan nyo ng kaso para mapabilis makulong. Eh, ginagawa naman ng gobyerno lahat ng kinakailangan eh. Ang gobyerno kasi, dito sa mga tangang nagmamadali, ang gobyerno, sinisigurado nila na kapag sila nagkaso, walang kawala. Kasi magsasampa ka ng kaso. Tapos, ma-dismiss lang dahil sa technicality. Hindi sayang lang yung pagod mo. Siguraduhin mo na merong kayo hinatdan yung kaso. Nagmamadali kayo masyado, tapos pag nabasura, nagreklamo na naman kayo, anak ng toko. Wala nang gagawin tama ang gobyerno eh. Sinisigurado lang ng gobyerno na may kahinat na. Hindi yung orang-or kasi kayo, katulad niyan, nakadalawang rally na kayo. Ano nangyari? Sabi niyo, December 1, iba na presidente. Anak ng toko. December 1, ano nangyari? Yung inauguration na barong nung ninyong gustong ilagay na presidente, ano nangyari? Wala, hindi naman nasuot. Tapos nada na naman, nga na naman kayo. Ito mga ito kasi mga kababayan, hindi na po bayan ang pinaglalaban nito. Kundi mga sarili na po nilang interes. Hindi na po bayan pinaglalaban nito. Mas makikinig pa ako dun sa panawagan ng mga kaibigan natin, mga campaigns. Bagamat may mga sinasabi sila na hindi tayo sang-ayon, pero mas gusto ko yun eh. Hindi katulad na itong mga to. Itong mga to kasi mga mga tagahanga na itong manang-eos eh. Manay-manayon nila eh. Maaamukha na nila eh. Di ba? So, ayun mga kababayan. Huwag kayong basta maniniwala dito sa mga to. Mga bigla na lang sumputan at akala mo sobrang galing, mas magaling pa sa presidente. Diba nga tumakbo mga tagawad, hindi ka manalo eh. So, mas nakakala mo pagkagaling-galing mo. At hamunin mo pa si John Vic Remulla. DILG Secretary John Vic Remulla, hinahamon ka netong Kuya Part na to, takot ka raw. Ayan takot ka raw takot yan. Dahil taas daw ng bakod mo. Hindi kasi naintindihan na itong tanga na to na kinakailangan kasing proteksyonan. Kaya talagang dapat nga talaga isarado yan, takpan na maigi yan eh. Para wala kayong dahilan para manggulo. Hindi ka man, di sila nakaporma. Kung mababa yan, di tuwan-tuwan sila, hagis sila ng hagis na kung ano-ano, manununog, manggugulo, mambabato. Ngayon, hindi nila kaya gawin yun. Saka nakabantay si John Vic eh. Di nakabantay yung mga bombero, di na nahimik sila. Para din sa proteksyon niya ng mga rallyista. Ito kasi, sarili niya lang iniisip niya. Pag matuhan, wala naman, nagtatago na. Nasa manano ba siya sa harap? Wala naman eh. Nananawagan ka na panggugulo kayo dyan. Pero nasa ka ba? Nasa likod. Pagka nagkahabulan na, takbo na. Hindi mo na makikita. Magaling lang to yan, mga garap-harap sa media. Pero pagka nagkagulo na, wala na sa mo makikita. Magtatago na yan. Diba? Na nagkakabatuhan ba? Nandun siya? Wala. Meron pa siyang pasabi-sabi na, ready na ba ang mga lighter ninyo? Diba? Sabi niya gano'n. Pero nung nung nakaraan sa Mindiola, nasan siya? Wala. Nagtago na. Parang itong mga manyaeos. Ang aling-aling niya, namon, mangyanaul na. Muha na. Hindi mo na mahinya. Anya-anya-ngaul na. Diba? Kanya-kanyang tago na sila. Magagaling lang to. Yan, pag umaharap sa kanya mga salitaan sa media. Pero pag talagang nagkagulo na, maunang magtatakbuhan yung mga yan. Puro yabang lang yan eh. Puro yabang lang. Kaya kung nga kay John Vic Rimulya, sir, tandaan mo itong mukha na to, oh. Ha? Hindi niyo ba kilala si John Vic? Mga stick yan sa Cavite. Gaganyanin mo. Ewan ko lang. Antayin mo, pag ikaw dinampot. Hindi ko lang kung saan pupulutin. Papulutin ka sa kangkungan. Okay, so yun lang po muna mga kababayan, yung update natin sa nangyari. Yan po sa nakaraang rally kahapon. Nako, yung iba pong mga rallyista, ayan po, hindi na nakauwi dahil walang pamasahe. Pinabayaan na po ng mga organizer. Etong mga manaheho naman, hindi naman gumungulong. Hindi man na namiyay ng meron, mamanahay ng mga hinihingi nila. Dapat tumulong kayo. Hindi na yung pabayaan nyo, yung mga rallyista. O, hindi na nakauwi. Tapos, bababuhin nyo pa Maynila. Lahat talaga kayo. Mga didilis talaga siya. Okay, so ilan po muna mga kababayan. Tutok-tutok lang po dito sa Batang Maynila. Ito, sa iba pang updates. Ingat po tayong lahat. God bless po.
Lily embarks on a solo camping trip deep in the remote jungles of Thailand. The day trips are peaceful, surrounded by towering trees and the sounds of nature. But as night falls, she begins to sense an unsettling.
Ito na yung ating aabangan. Okay? After nga po na panindigan ng International Criminal Court, ICC, na hindi pwedeng pansamantalang palayain o binasura ang interim release na gusto ng Duterte Camp. Ang susunod po dito ay trial. Kung hindi man masimulan ngayong December, ay siyempre sa pagpasok na ito ng bagong taon. Grabe patagal. Mag-isang taon na si Duterte nakakulong. Nahuli siya at hinuli siya ay March 12 pa o 11 din sa atin. Kung next year pa lang magsisimula ang actual na trial, may matagal-tagal ito. Pero wala tayong magagawa. Wala po tayong control sa ICC. Wala tayong magagawa niya kung hindi sumunod lang kung ano ang kailang ginagawa. Base sa mga batas na hihiran at base sa mga dokumento, testigo na ipinipresenta at ipresenta ng mga prosecutor sa side ng mga naging biktima ng nakaraang gobyerno. Ganun po yun eh. So, alam niyo, sa isang banda kung iisipin natin, itong ginawa at gagawin ng ICC ang magkaroon talaga ng opisyal na trial, paglilitis, ito yung pagkakataon ni dating Pangulong Duterte ipagtanggol ang kanyang sarili. Dapat magaling ng kanyang abogado. Dapat marami siyang ebidensya at testigo na mapatunayang hindi
Sa pagpapatuloy ng ating 80s Philippine timeline, ay nadako naman tayo sa taong 1981, taon na tuluyan na magtatapos ang martial law. Masiglang-masigla pa rin ang pop culture at ang pag-adapt natin sa mga makunlaraning idea at interes. Pero sa kabila nito, ay nananatiling otoritarianismo ang umiiral na sistema ng bansa. Si Pangulong Marcos pa rin ang nasusunod, pero naroon na maraming nagpuprotesta. At itong si Linoy sa Amerika ay matindi ang magiging mga banat sa gobyerno ng Pilipinas. Sa totoo lamang kung babalikan natin noong dekada 70 sa pagpapasimula ng batas militar, ay nagawang baguhin ni Pangulong Marcos ang batas ng Pilipinas para nga maging legal ang kanyang pananatili sa pwesto ng matagal na panahon. Bagaman mga kaalyado lang din naman niya ang nag-aproba at sumang-ayon dito dahil sa mga pagkakataon ay halos nakakulong. Ang karamihan sa mga oposisyon, kumbaga, ay ginamitan talaga ng utak. Hindi rin nangihimasok ang Estados Unidos sa sitwasyon ng bansa dahil malapit nga ito sa gobyernong Marcos. Sa taong 1981 ay nagpapatuloy din ang pagdami ng mga rebelding NPA at talaga namang magiging sakit ng ulo ng gobyerno. At ngayon din ang patuloy na pakikibaka ng MNLF sa Mindanao. Dito sa taong ito tuloy ng babagsak o hihina ang ekonomiya ng bansa. Bababa ang GDP ng 3.4%. Bababa din ang sahod ng mga manggagawa at sinasabing aabot ng 40% ng populasyon ng bansa ang makakaranas ng kahirapan. Bubungad sa taong ito 1981 ng buwan ng Enero Ang tinatawag na DVD financial scandal, ang ginawang pagtangay ng negosyanteng si DVD na kroni ni Pangulong Marcos sa mga inutang ko sa mga iba't ibang bangko sa Pilipinas. Ang nasabi nagkakahalaga ng daang milyon, hindi ito nagbayad at umiska pa palabas ng bansa. Tinakasan ng mga nasabing utang na naging dahilan naman ng matinding financial crisis sa Pilipinas sa dekada 80. January 5, 1981 naman, nang maglabas ng Executive Order 640, itong si President Marcos. Ito ay para may tatag ang Film Academy of the Philippines, ahensya ng gobyerno na magsusulong sa pagpapaunlad ng movie industry sa Pilipinas. Isa pang Eddie Romero film ang ipinalabas naman, January 15, 1981, ang Kamakalawa, isang Filipino fantasy film na pinagbidahan itong si Christopher De Leon, Techek Bayani at Chat Silayan. Ang kwento ay tumatalakay sa mga folklore at prehistoric Philippines. Ito ay bahagi ng epic historical trilogy nitong si Eddie Romero. Kabilang ang Ganito Kami Noon, Paano Kaya Ngayon, at ang Agila. Nagbukas naman January 16, 1981, ang Lung Center of the Philippines, isang tertiary hospital ng gobyerno na tumututok sa prevention at paggamot sa mga sakit sa baga at iba pang mga sakit sa bahagi ng dibdib.
For the end of martial law does not mean the end of our efforts, of our needed reforms, of our struggles, of our sacrifices.
January 17, 1981, nang tuluyan ng elite ni Pangulong Marcos ang martial law sa bansa. Ito ay bago ang pagdalaw ni Pope John Paul II at matapos naman ang inaugurasyon itong si President Reagan ng Estados Unidos. Sa totoo lamang matapos malib ang martial law, ay wala naman masyadong nagbago sa kung paano mamuno itong si Pangulong Marcos. Dahil siya pa rin naman ang nasusunod at suspindido pa rin ng privilege of the writ of habeas corpus. Ito ay para daw sa gupain ng anumang rebellion at pwede pa rin manghuli ang mga pulis at sundalo kapag trip nila o kahit walang judicial order. At ayon pa sa mga eksperto, ang paglilip lang daw ng martial law ay sinasabing paghahanda lang daw ni Pangulong Marcos sa kanyang ilo-launch na Fourth Republic na mananatili namang constitutional authoritarianism. Sa madaling salita, ay parang martial law pa din. Sa taon ding ito, 1981, ay ma-establish na ang modern form ng DPWH. Modern form dahil 1898 pa, ay talaga nag-i-exist na ang ahensya. Ito ay sa panahon pa ng mga Kastila. Ang ahensya ito ay responsable naman sa larangan ng engineering at konstruksyon sa bansa. Ahensya ngayon ng gobyerno na pinamumugaran ng mga mandurugas.
Sabi, ano bang ginawa mo? Pagbihira ka talaga. Kita mo ginawa mo nito. Ang dumi-dumi. Kita mo po. Ano bang ginawa mo dyan?
Ipinalabas naman sa Takilya, January 27, 1981, ang pelikulang Bakit Bughaw ang Langit, isang drama film na pinagbidahan ni superstar Nora Honor na talaga namang umantig sa puso ng mga Pilipino. Naganap naman February 12, 1981, ang karimari-marim na Pata Island Massacre, kung saan ay nasa 124 na mga sundalo mula sa Philippine Army's 31st Infantry Battalion ang pinaslang ng mga sinasabing MNLF daw o mga Moro natives. Ito ay sa Pata Island sa Sulu, kung saan tinraidor nila ang mga sundalo. Ito ay sa pamumuno ni Commander Onat at para naman makabawi ang gobyerno dahil sa ginawang paglabag sa rule of war ng mga nasabing rebelding Muslim, ay binomba ng Philippine Army at Philippine Navy ang nasabing isla sa loob ng 2 buwan, kung saan sinasabing nagtatago raw ang mga salarin. At dito ay nangyari naman na 3,000 mga sibilyan na mga tausugang nadamay, kabilang ang mga bata at mga kababaihan o namatay dahil nga sa kanilang pambubomba. At ang nasabing pag-atake na ito ng gobyerno ay mas malala pa at sinasabing ang tunay talagang massacre.
While you laugh and I cry, you know you hurt.
Sumunod na araw, February 12, 1981, nang may palabas naman sa Takilya ang pelikulang Blue Jeans na pinagbidahan itong si Dina Bonnevie, Alfie Anido, Albert Martinez at ng Apo Hiking Society, isang drama comedy teen movie na nagpapakita ng buhay ng mga teenager sa dekada 80. At ang pelikulang ito ay hango sa kanta ng Apo. Dahil sa mga panahon ito ay sikat na sikat din ang Apo Hiking Society. Halos lahat ng kanta nila ay tinatangkilik talaga ng mga Pilipino. Ito ay mula pa sa katapusan ng dekada 70 hanggang sa pagpasok ng dekada 80. February 17 naman 1981, nang dumating naman sa ating bansa, itong si Pope John Paul II. Ito dahil sa kanyang pastoral missionary vocation sa ating bansa. Ang pagtutok niya sa kahirapan at sa pang-aabuso sa Pilipinas. At higit sa lahat ay ang kanyang pagbabeatify kay San Lorenzo Ruiz. Ito ay bilang isang santo nga na Pilipino. Nanatili itong si Pope John Paul II sa ating bansa sa loob ng 6 na araw mula February 17 hanggang February 22, 1981, kung saan ay nagtungo siya sa Manila, sa Cebu, sa Bacolod, sa Iloilo, sa Legazpi at sa Davao. Isa ring pelikula nagmumulat sa mga kabataan sa mga maling desisyon na pwedeng makasira sa buhay ang ipinalabas sa takilya February 20, 1981, ang High School Scandal na pinagbidahan itong sina Sandy Andolong, Gina Alahar, Ting Hocson at Iregi Liwag. At ito'y dinirig naman itong si Gil Portes dahil patungkol ito sa issue ng abortion. Naging soundtrack ng pelikulang ito ang hit song ni Sharon Cuneta sa taong 1981. Ang High School Life ay tinatawag ding High School. Ang kantang ito ay sinulat ni George Canseco at ito ay na-release kung saan 15 years old pa lamang itong si Sharon Cuneta. High school pa lamang siya sa mga sandaling ito. At ito ay naging bahagi rin ng kanyang 1981 greatest hits album na High School. March 6, 1981, nakipalabas sa takilya ang isa namang comedy horror film na Takbo Peter Takbo na pinagbidahan at idinarig itong si Chiquito, kung saan kasama niya dito itong si Connie Reyes. March 8, 1981 naman, magpasimula naman ng 1981 PBA season. Ito ay kapitong season ng PBA, kung saan ang nag-champion sa Open Conference ay ang Toyota Super Diesels. Crisp Admonizers naman sa Reinforced Filipino Conference. At hinangal naman ng most valuable player itong si Pope Adornado ng UTEX Anglers. March 10, 1981 naman, nang maaprobahan naman ng batas pambansa bilang 122. Ito ay para sa pagkakaroon ng plebisito sa ating bansa. Para sa muling pagbabago na naman ng batas. Ayon sa mga eksperto, ay muli na naman itong pakulo ni Pangulong Marcos. Kaya parang ang gawing legal ang pananatili niya sa pwesto. Sa taon din ito 1981, sa kapila ng maigpit na mata ng gobyerno Marcos sa pagpapalabas ng mga pelikula na mayroong temang social realism, isasabing maaaring gumising daw sa mga kamalayan ng Pilipino, ay patuloy ang ilang mga film producer at mga direktor sa paglikha ng mga ganitong uri ng panoorin, tulad ng pelikulang kontrobersyal na ipinalabas sa takilya March 20, 1981, na pinagbidahan itong si Philip Salvador, Charo Santos Concho at Gina Alahar. Ito ay sa panulat ng magaling na manunulat na si Tony Perez at sa direksyon naman ng batikang direktor na si Lino Broca. Ito ay madilim na kwento sa likod ng Philippine showbiz industry. Binawian naman ng buhay March 22, 1981. Itong si Gil Puyat, isang Pilipino politician at businessman na nakilala bilang senador at naging Senate President din bago ideklara ang martial law noong 1967 hanggang 1972. Buwan ng Abril, April 7, 1981, nanganapin na nga sa bansa ang national at local plebiscite. Ito ay parang amiyendahan ang 1973 Constitution na si Pangulong Marcos din naman ang humabi. Taong 1973 kasi nagawin niyang parlamentaryo ang sistema ng bansa. At sa taong 1981, gamit ng plebisito, ay muling ang babaguhin ng batas sa pamamagitan ng pagboto ng no or yes. At sinasabing sa muling pagbabago ng batas na ito ay sinasabing paghahanda rin daw sa darating na 1981 presidential election. Sa buwan nga ng Hunyo na muling magluluklok kay Pangulong Marcos bilang Pangulo. At ayun na nga, sa naganap na plebisito ay nanalo ang yes na merong 79.53% na boto. Sa larangan naman ng musika sa panahon ito, sinasabing ito raw ay golden age sa ating bansa. At patuloy ang kasikatan ng Manila Sounds, kasabay ang pagsibol ng mga OPM ballad, tulad ng mga kanta nitong si Basil Valdez, Nonoy Sundika, Ryan Gabyab, Haji Alejandro at Rico J. Puno.
Kumusta ka? Ikaw ay walang pinag-iba. The will to keep on.
Ang taong nagtutulakan sa ating hidang aking napadaanan.
Walang tigil ang gulo sa aking pag-iisip. Bakit ako sa'yo ipaglalaban ko. Natapos ko ang aking pag-aaral. Tayo'y magkakalayo.
Nariyan din ang mga bandang Juan de la Cruz at Asin.
Dead na dead talaga ako sa mga pagkakapit mga kaibigan at makinig kayo.
At sa panahon ito ay sikat sa bansa ang mga radio station na DZRJ at ang WXB 102 kung saan dito nakikinig ang mga Pilipino ng mga paborito nilang kanta. At syempre nariyan din ang impluensya ng mga new synth, heavy punk at new wave sa ating bansa. Alam naman natin kung gaano katindi ang pag-boom ng new wave sa buong mundo sa dekada 80. Ilan sa mga unang tinangkilik ng Pilipino ay mga tugtugan ng The Police, The Clash, at ng The Cure. Sa taon na ito 1981 ay matatatag ang Makati Business Club, isang private non-profit business association na binubuo ng mga company executives. Layunin nila ang pagpapalago ng investment sa bansa at pagbabahagi ng ibang mga kaalaman patungkol sa negosyo at naging malaking faktor sa paglaban sa diktadorya nitong si Pangulong Marcos. Sa taong ito 1981 ay marirelease ang album ni Sharon Cuneta na P.S. I Love You na kinapapalooban ng kantang P.S. I Love You at ng Dear Heart na mag-hit din sa taong ito 1981. Isang comedy horror film naman ang ipinalabas May 14, 1981, ang Mang Kepeng's Final Conflict. Kwento nitong si Mang Kepeng, isang albularyo na pinagbidaan nitong si Chiquito kung saan ay makikipagtunggali siya sa mga alagad ng dilim o mga zombies na atake sa kanilang baryo. Isang lito-lapid film naman ang ipinalabas naman sa takilya ng sumunod na araw, May 15, 1981, ang Hieronimo, kung saan kumalapit ng si Lito Lapid bilang si Hieronimo, isang matapang na pinatilyo na mamumuno sa kanilang tribo para harapin ang mga umuusig sa kanila. Pagdating naman sa popularidad ng comics, sa taong ito, dekada 80, ang sinasabing peak ng kasikatan nito sa ating bansa. Nariyan pa rin ng Filipino comics, Tagalog comics at Hiwaga comics, kung saan nagsisikat ang mga creator na sina Mars Ravelo, Nestor Redondo, Jim Fernandez, Carlo J. Caparaz, Elena Patron, at marami pang iba. Kaya din ang mga karakter nitong sina Suma, Captain Barbell, Lastic Man, at Darna. Ikinalabas naman sa takilya June 4, 1981, ang crossover at masasabing mag-merge o pagkukulab ng dalawang nangungunang teleserye sa taong ito 1981, ang Flor de Luna at ang Analisa. At ang pelikulang ito ay Flor de Lisa. Ito'y pinagbidaan ni Janice de Belen at Julie Vega. Malamarang-larang kwento rin ang magkapatid na lumaking magkahiwalay sa magkaibang sitwasyon ng buhay. Isa namang Steven Spielberg na pelikula, ang Indiana Jones, The Raiders of the Lost Ark, ang narelease June 12, 1981. na nagustuhan ng mga Pilipino. Ito ay first installment ng Indiana Jones series na nag-hit sa buong mundo. June 14, 1981 naman, nang maganap naman ang tinatawag na Daig Massacre, kung saan 4 ang binawian ng buhay dito at halos 50 naman ang nasugatan. Ito ay ng pagbabarilin ng puwersa ng gobyerno o ng mga sundalo ang mga nagpoprotesta sa Daig Camarines Norte na humihiling ng pagtaas ng presyo ng kopra. Kanila rin kinokontra ang sinasabing peking eleksyon na magaganap at ang issue ng Coco Levy Fund Scam. Grupo sila ng tawagin ay kilusang mamamayan para sa tunay na demokrasya. At ang 4 na namatay sa kanila ito si Jose Esteban Alcantara, Rogelio Salayon Guevara, Elmer Liz Lagareja at Benjamin Buena Susat. Kung saan ay nakasulat mga pangalan nila sa bantayog ng mga bayani. Samantala, bago ang araw ng eleksyon o presidential election sa buwan na ito ng Hunyo, ay ilang oposisyon ang nag-boycott dahil sinasabi nilang tiyak na kontrolado rin naman ng gobyerno ang magiging resulta o kontrolado rin daw ito ni Pangulong Marcos. Nagkakalokohan lang daw ito ay sa grupo ng UNIDO o ng United Nationalist Democratic Organization. At ayun na nga, June 16, 1981, ang ganapin sa bansa ang 1981 presidential election kung saan nakalaban ni Pangulong Marcos sa Panguluhan ang nagkangalang Alejo Santos. Napakawala lang din naman daw niya. Siyempre naging landslide ng boto na pabor kay Pangulong Marcos. Muling maluluklok bilang Pangulo ng bansa. Sa mga panahon kasi ito ay wala talagang matinding oposisyon na pwedeng bumangga sa kanya dahil nga nasa Amerika si Ninoy sa mga pagkakataong ito. Sa pagkapanalo ito ni Pangulong Marcos at sa pagbabago nga ng batas ay muli siyang magiging Pangulo ng bansa. Muli siyang manunungkulan ng 6 na taon at dito ay lolong siyang tinatawag na Fourth Republic kung saan mananatili pa rin authoritarianismo ang sistema ng bansa. Mananatili siyang diktador. Mananatiling suspendido ang privilege of the writ of habeas corpus. So walang pagbabago. June 30, 1981 naman, nang muling manumpa itong si Pangulong Marcos sa pagiging Pangulo ng bansa. At itong si Cesar Perata naman bilang punong ministro. Sa pagpasok ng buwan ng Hulyo, sasalubong sa bansa ang bagyong Daling na mananalasa sa Kabisayaan at sa Southern Luzon. Sa taon din ito 1981 ay ma-release lang batang-batang si Lea Salonga ang kanyang debut album, The Small Boys. Ito ay sa ilalim ng FGS Records, kung saan ang album na ito ay umabot ng gold records. Ilan sa mga sumikat na kanta dito ay ang I Am But Small Boys, Rego Connection, Thank You for the Music at marami pang iba. July 7, 1981, nang may natagang Tape Incorporated o Television and Production Exponents Incorporated. Itong si Romeo Alusos at ni Tony Baviera. Nakilalang TV company na ito sa pag-produce kabilang ay Bulaga na hinawakan nila mula 1981 hanggang 2024. 1981 din nang matatag ang Malaya newspapers na Tagalog ang lengguwahe sa mga sandaling ito sa itong broadsheet na nakabase sa Intramuros. At 1983 naman ang magkaroon na ito ng English language. July 24, 1981 naman, naipalabas sa takilya ang Sharon Cuneta film na Dear Heart, kung saan gumanap siya bilang April. At ang kaparehan niya naman na si Gabby ay gumanap naman bilang si Jimmy. Sa kwento ay paglalaban nila ang kanilang pagmamahalan sa kabila ng maraming mga pagsubok.
Uy, anong ginagawa mo?
Naantok pa ako eh.
July 23, 1981, ipalabas naman sa takilyang babaeng kinugod sa aking tadyang na nakapaya sa graphic novel itong si Carlo J. Caparas na pinagpidaan naman itong si Vivian Velez at Andy Rodriguez. Classic Filipino sex violence form ng pelikula na patungkol sa lalaking na humaling isang babaeng misteryosong dumating lamang sa kanyang buhay.
Ay, mamaya na ipagkita nun. Kailangan manicure muna bago ba yan?
Sasabay ko kasi!
Samantalang July 31, 1981, sa namang TVJ film, ang napalabas sa takilya, ang Bilibid Case. Kwento ng tatlong magkakaibigang bakla na na-frame up dahil sa isang pagpatay sa kanilang amo na hindi naman silang may gawa. Dahil para sila ay makulong sa Bilibid. Pero pipilit nilang makatakas para mapatunayan na hindi talaga sila ang may gawa ng nasabing krimen.
7, 6, 5, 4. We've gone for main engine start. We have main engine start.
August mo naman 1981, nang i-launch ang music channel na MTV o Music Television. Kung saan ang kauna-una ang music video na nag-play dito ay ang video Kill the Radio Star ng bandang The Baggies. Sa taong ito ay patuloy ang maigpit na rivalry nito sa Vilma Santos at Oro Honor ay sa larangan ng pelikula dahil sa dami ng mga pinagbibidahan nila. 1981 din ang may tatag ang film production company na Seiko Films nitong si Robin Han. Unang pelikula hanggang dito ay ang Panlaban, Dos por Dos, na pinagbidahan nitong si Rex Lapid at Bamber Moran. Binuhay naman ang buhay August 22, 1981. Ang isa naman sa pinakasikat na pintor at national artist sa larangan ng visual arts ay si Vicente Manansala. Nakilala siya sa istilong transparent cubism. Ilan naman sa kanyang mga likhang obra ay ang Madonna of the Slums, Jeepneys, The Bestseller, Lating Rice, Kalabaw, at mga still life. August 28, 1981. Ang may palabas naman sa takilya ang pelikulang Maestro, itong si FPJ. Pelikula nagpapakita ng martial skill kung saan ang huli lang si Hernan o si FPJ nga ay magpamana ng titulo bilang Master Swordsman. Ito sa kanyang guro at lalabanan naman niya ang mga masamang loob ay para mapatunayan na karapat-dapat siya sa titulong Milana niya. Isang kahindik-hindik na pangyayari naman ang naganap August 31, 1981 nang ang trading vessel na MV Nuria 767 ay atakihin ng mga pirata. Ang nasabing trading vessel ay may rutang Ulusulu at Duguan, Malaysia. Nang atakihin ito ng mga pirata sa Cagayan de Tawi-Tawi. Agad silang ninakawan ng mga ito at ang kahindik-hindik niya ay pinagpabaril ng mga ito ang mga crew ng nasabing barko. Labing isa agad na binawian ng buhay. At dahil naman sa takot ng iba pa, nagsilundagan ng mga ito sa dagat, kung saan sa 48 tumalon ay 25 ang binawian ng buhay nang dahil sa pagkalunod. At ang pangyayari rin sinasabing isa sa pinakamalalang pag-atake ng pirata sa kasaysayan ng Pilipinas. 1981 din, nang mapasimulan sa Pilipinas ang Coca-Cola Beverages, na unang tinawag na Coca-Cola Bottlers Philippines Incorporated. Ang kumpanya ay natatag sa pamamagitan ng joint ventures na San Miguel, ang bottling company sa Pilipinas, kung saan 70% sa San Miguel at 30% naman sa Coca-Cola Company. Isa pang sea incident ang naganap noong September 21, 1981 nang ang flagship ng Philippine Navy na BRP Dato Malansiao ay sumadsad sa mabatong bahagi ng Calayan Island at ito'y lumubog. Ito'y dahil sa bagyong Rubing at sa paglubog ng barko ito ay sinasabing 70 ang binawian ng buhay at 18 lamang ang nakaligtas. 1981 din nagpasimula ang McDonald's sa ating bansa o McDonald's Philippines. Ang itayo nitong si George T. Yang, ang kauna-una McDonald's restaurant sa Moraita sa Manila. At 1992 naman ang magkaroon nito ng branch sa Visayas, sa Cebu at sa Cagayan de Oro sa Mindanao. Sa buwan naman ng Oktubre ay nag-rebrand ng TV station na BBC2 kung saan ay naging City 2 na ito. Kung saan ay nagkatisikat ang mga programa nilang Epoch Bunot, Manila Files at ang Sesame Street. Sa buwan dito ng Oktubre 1981 ay nagpasimula ang konstruksyon ng LRT o LRT1. 1980 nang mabuo ang Light Rail Transit Authority bilang proyekto ni Pangulong Marcos. At itong si First Lady Imelda naman bilang gobernador ng Manila ang namuno sa proyektong ito. Ito'y sa tulong ng mga ibang bansa tulad ng Belgium at Switzerland. At 1984 naman na magbukas na magpasimula ito ng operasyon. Sa taong ding ito 1981 ay sisikat din sa buong bansa at sa buong mundo ang mga Agid King na Pac-Man at Donkey Kong na kagigiliwan ng mga Pilipino hanggang sa paglipas ng panahon hanggang sa dekada 90. November 11, 1981, ang may tatag ang Viva Communications o Viva Entertainment Incorporated o Viva nitong si Vic Del Rosario Jr. at ng kapatid niyang si Tescos, kung saan incorporated din dito ang Viva Films, isa sa pinakasikat na film production and distribution company sa bansa. Ang Viva Communications at ang Viva Films ay masasabi naging bahagi ng buhay ng mga Pilipino mula pa sa panahon ng Tambalang Gapi at Sharon hanggang sa panahon natin sa ngayon ay namilikha pa rin ito ng entertainment para sa mga Pilipino. November 17, 1981 naman na maganap ang isa sa malungkot at trahedya ng Administrasyong Marcos. Ito yung
There's a new way to experience luxury.
One by one, prostitutes die across Central Europe. Austrian authorities believe one man is responsible. But they have no experience hunting serial killers. They turn to an FBI profiler for help. He finds the same killer has come to America, and the death count keeps rising until the FBI stops him.
Beginning in 1990, Europe found itself in the clutches of a serial killer. He became an international outlaw, hopping from country to country to evade capture and to kill again. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. Legal cooperation between countries and continents is not common, but neither are serial killers in Europe. Desperate to apprehend him, Austrian authorities called on the FBI for help.
In Austria, the exchange of sex for money has been legal for years. Here, prostitutes walk the streets for men willing to pay for their services. Throughout most of the 1980s, Ida Marie Hammer worked in the city of Brigands as a prostitute. A licensed professional for almost 10 years. She was used to unusual requests. But on the night of December 5th, 1990, a customer went too far. The killer hurriedly redressed his victim. Then he dragged her through a secluded forest some 10 miles away and left her body. The crime went undiscovered for 3 weeks. On the morning of New Year's Eve, 1990, a pair of hikers stumbled upon Hammerer's body. Though the body had been left exposed to the elements, the winter temperatures helped preserve the remains. Austrian authorities determined that Hammerer had been strangled with her own pantyhose. Her wrists were bruised from restraints. At the autopsy, they found no sexual discharge on her body. But they did find fibers that were inconsistent with her clothing. She was only the first victim. Over the next several months, 3 more prostitutes died violently throughout Austria. Brunhilde Mosse was recovered in a stream bed near Graz. Elfriede Schrepp, also from Graz, was found nearby in the woods. Near Vienna, Sylvia Zagler was discovered in a stand of trees. The women had all been bruised, strangled with their pantyhose, and left in various states of undress, lying face down in wooded areas. The Austrian public was shocked. On April 4th, 1991, the authorities gathered their most experienced investigators to focus on the slayings. Because of the similarities in the 4 cases, investigators reasoned that one person was responsible. Austria had its first serial killer in modern history. They had no experience investigating these offenders. Dr. Ernst Geiger, one of Austria's leading detectives, was assigned to coordinate the hunt.
No lead was promising. All that the leads ended nowhere. We had no real suspect.
The first break came when a retired policeman read of the murders in a Salzburg newspaper. They reminded him of a case he solved in 1974. Detective Geiger received a phone call from the retired officer. 15 years earlier, he told Geiger, a young woman had been strangled with one of her undergarments and dumped in the woods. Just like the present victims. The killer was caught and convicted, but had recently been paroled. Detective Geiger took the name of the ex-convict, Johann Jack Unterweger.
Jack Unterweger was paroled after 15 years because he had murdered a young girl before, and while he was in prison, he became a writer, quite a famous writer.
But was it possible that this famous writer could be a serial killer? Geiger and his team began looking into the journalist's background. Until 1990, Jack Unterweger had led a difficult life. He was born to a German prostitute who quickly abandoned him. He suffered neglect and abuse, shuttling between various foster situations. As a teenager, Jack began to play out the rage of his dismal childhood. By age 25, that fury earned Unterweger a life sentence. Unterweger continued his education and started writing while in prison. He published letters, plays, short stories, and an autobiography.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Let your heart be light.
Next year, all our troubles will be out of sight.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Meet the Yuletide gay. Next year, all our troubles will be miles away. Was it bad as the golden days? Happy golden days of yore. Faithful friends who are true to us, who'll be near to us once more.
You can focus on Christmas, because we're focused on you.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
In the book that became a bestseller. Unterweger painted a tragic tale of himself as victim. Critics and the public alike embraced the author for the apparent honesty with which he confronted his past. The literary community suggested that art had redeemed him. Eventually, the press and the public at large demanded that his life sentence be commuted. On May 12, 1990, Austrian authorities agreed. The 40-year-old Austrian walked out of prison. He was a free man, determined never to spend another minute of his life behind bars. Shortly after his release, he was hired by a major German magazine to cover the prostitute murders. He promised to use his writing in a socially conscious way. He told his editor that he wanted to give voice to the dispossessed, caught in the underbelly of society, as he once was. By July 1991, after 2 more prostitutes were found strangled, psychologist Tom Mueller of Austria's Criminal Investigation Division joined the team.
When we started the investigation against Sheikh Unterweger, it was pretty hard because all his friends were within the media and they couldn't understand that he could be the bad guy.
Even among investigators, only a handful considered this celebrity journalist a possible suspect. Through receipts and travel records, Geiger and Mueller learned that Unterweger had been at each murder location. This was not suspicious in itself, since he was covering the story as an investigative journalist. Yet he always reached those destinations before the murders took place. Investigators also discovered that Unterweger had visited Prague in September 1990, just before a Czechoslovakian woman, Blanka Bokova, was strangled with her pantyhose. She was the earliest victim in the string of murders that now totaled 7.
What was outstanding for us, that exactly at any time where Czech hang out at any place in Prague, in the western part of Austria, in the southern part of Austria, exactly at that time period, there was always a dead body somewhere in the woods.
In Austria, another woman, Regina Prem, had been missing for months and presumed dead. Her family waited desperately for news of her fate. In October of 1991, the grief-stricken husband and son received a chilling phone call to their unlisted number. The caller told him that he was Regina's killer and described what she was wearing the night she disappeared. The caller claimed that he was the executioner, that God ordered him to do it, that she was left lying in the place of sacrifice with her face turned towards hell. The phone call was cruel torture to an already traumatized family. When police recovered her body, they confirmed Regina was the killer's 8th victim. The discovery put them no closer to stopping the killer. Vienna, October 22nd, 1991. Austrian authorities questioned Unterweger for the first time. With no hard evidence to connect him to the crimes, they hoped for a confession. He admitted to consorting with prostitutes for his writing assignments and for sex. But he denied knowing the victims. Although his alibis were weak, investigators were forced to release him. Their evidence was merely circumstantial, and his public support was growing. But Mueller and Geiger still believed Unterweger was a strong suspect and continued digging into his past. They tracked down the car Jack drove when he was first released from prison. But it had been a year since he sold it, and the likelihood of finding any usable evidence was slim. The team uncovered little, except a hair fragment. Although it was was a long shot, investigators sent the hair fragment to the University of Bern for analysis. Enough of the hair root remained for lab technicians to extract a DNA sequence. That sequence was compared to those of the victims. Of the 8 women slain, the DNA from the hair matched the earliest victim from Prague, Blanka Bokova, killed in September 1990. It was a breakthrough.
Pastor Tol, dito ka na sa Buenas. Secure at legit. May 24/7 customer service pa. Kaya kung pagiging tunay lang, Buenas na yan!
But that only proved the woman was in the car when Jack owned it. Investigators needed stronger evidence. Now back at police headquarters, Geiger questioned Austrian prostitutes. They recognized Unterweger as a regular customer who insisted they wear handcuffs during sex. More importantly, one recalled seeing him approach her friend, Heide Marie Hammerer, the first victim discovered in Bregenz. She also remembered he wore a brown leather jacket on that night. On the strength of this identification and the hair fragment found in his car, Geiger obtained a warrant to search Unterweger's apartment.
Jack, Unterweger? Kommissar!
When the police arrived, Unterweger was nowhere to be found. They took away clothing, including a brown leather jacket, for forensic examination. Then one of the detectives discovered some receipts in the trash can. They were from a seafood restaurant in Malibu, California, dated 9 months earlier. Jack Unterweger had been to the United States. But the apartment search yielded less than investigators had hoped. They found no hard evidence that directly tied Unterweger to the slayings. Since the case was still too weak to issue an arrest warrant, the investigation stalled. Jack Unterweger was still one step ahead. To stop him, Geiger needed help from those more experienced with catching serial killers. He needed the FBI. The Austrian investigators visited the U.S. Embassy. They met with legal attaché Julianne Slisko, an FBI agent stationed in Vienna. Slisko called her criminal profiling unit in Quantico, Virginia. She was patched through Special Agent Greg McCrary. Now retired, McCrary spent the last 10 of his 25 years in the FBI.
The Austrians contacted the FBI because they were trying to tap into our experience of dealing with serial homicide investigations. This was the first serial murder investigation in modern history in Austria.
McCrary agreed to assist the Austrians. He would help them determine if one perpetrator could have committed all the murders. When Geiger told Slisko that Unterweger had traveled to LA the previous summer, she authorized a telex to be sent to California to inform local authorities. Over the next several days, Geiger and Mueller prepared for their trip to the FBI, packing crime scene reports, autopsy protocols, and photos. Then they received a call from LA detective Fred Miller. Miller had received their telex and said that California had suffered a similar pattern of killings during the prior summer. Now investigators turned their attention to LA, 6,000 miles away, in the hunt for the Austrian serial killer. By the fall of 1991, 8 women had been found dead in Central Europe. The prime suspect was Austrian celebrity writer Jack Unterweger. But little forensic evidence tied him to the crimes. And the public believed the police were pursuing an innocent man. An FBI telex from Vienna to California caught the attention of Los Angeles detective Fred Miller. He and his partner, Jim Harper, had been working for months on a series of unsolved murders. In style and pattern, the LA crimes resembled the ones that Unterweger was suspected of in Austria.
This immediately lit the fires, and it was just unbelievable to go all these 8 months and without the suspect turning up or another murder. This was quite a boost to the investigation.
The American and Austrian investigators compared notes. The cases were clearly similar. The victims were prostitutes. All had been strangled using intimate apparel. And all the bodies were left in remote locations. Now, Miller and Harper began to reconstruct Unterweger's visit to California. They checked the airlines, car rental agencies, and hotel logs. From these, they created a timeline of his movements.
We learned that he came to Los Angeles in June of '91 on vacation, right around June 2nd or 3rd, and that he left around the 17th of July.
In the summer of 1990, Unterweger visited LAPD headquarters.
I'm a journalist. I am
He
interested.
strolled into the public relations office, presented his press credentials, and signed up for the ride-along program. Allows civilians to tag along with police in their cruisers as they patrol the city.
Tonight at 8:30
As all Jack's credentials were in order, the request was accepted.
Jack Unterweger.
Unterweger claimed he was writing a German magazine story, contrasting American and European prostitution. He asked to be shown where the city's prostitutes hung out. The officers introduced him to the seedier areas of Los Angeles. Detective Jim Harper explains.
I mean, if you come to a city as big as Los Angeles, prostitutes don't hang out everywhere. You gotta know where they hang out. What better way to do that than get a ride along with the police department?
Witnesses last saw 21-year-old Shannon Exley in the vicinity of 7th Street and Main Street. She had been working the streets since she'd run away from home at 16. Her life ended on June 20th, 1991. Her nude body was found with her bra wrapped around her neck. Marks on her feet told investigators she had already been strangled when she was dragged some 50 feet to where she was found. Lacerations across her neck. Medical technicians were able to isolate DNA sequences from the semen of 7 men. But LA detectives had no suspects with whom they could compare the samples. 10 days later, investigators discovered a second prostitute, Irene Rodriguez. She was found behind a tractor trailer, only 1.5 miles from where Exley's body had been dumped. Both women had been strangled with their bras, and both were last seen in the vicinity of 7th and Main Street. The detectives discovered that Unterweger was living nearby.
We learned that he stayed at the Cecil Hotel, which is located at 643 South Main, which is right on the corner of 7th and Main Street, and that's the location where close proximity where both our victims were last seen.
A third victim, Sherry Long, was found near Malibu less than 2 weeks later. Once again, Unterweger was staying at a hotel in the vicinity Long was last seen. Around her neck, her bra was tied tightly. Detective Jim Harper remembers the unique method of strangulation.
The way the bras were tied around their neck was nothing that I had seen before. looks to me took a lot of intricate time to really take time with the victim and put it around her neck and tie it.
Los Angeles criminalist Lynn Harold compared the knots to see if there was a pattern in the way each had been made and tied.
In order for the knots to be made, the wearing apparel had to be dismantled in some form. It's not like the bras were just taken and tied in a square knot, but they were stripped of the elastic always on the left side. And if 3 people randomly went out and strangled 3 people, it is extremely unlikely that all 3 of them would come up with this same scenario.
Now Geiger and Mueller added the information from the Los Angeles murders to their own case and headed to Virginia. They hoped that the FBI could determine whether one man had indeed killed all 11 women. Back in Austria, Jack Unterweger maintained a high profile. The celebrity journalist continued to publish his articles and appeared on television to talk about the murders. He told audiences that the Austrian police were inept at finding the real killer and had singled him out as a scapegoat. Unterweger claimed that the authorities were determined to send him back to prison, even if that meant framing him for the grisly crimes. Unterweger remained popular with the public at large and in the nightclubs where he was a regular. To his fans, and especially women, he was still charming. He boasted the police had no evidence, only theories. And they would never be able to send him back to prison. In August 1992, Austrian detectives arrived at Quantico, Virginia. They needed an experienced FBI profiler to help them capture the serial killer that had left 11 women dead in Central Europe and California. The Austrians came with 12 boxes of evidence.
Report on that.
Special Agent Greg McCrary refused to look at any information on the prime suspect, Jack Unterweger. He didn't want any preconceived notions to interfere with his analysis. Instead, McCrary wanted to focus on the victims.
I wanted all the case materials on all of the homicides, victimology, a lot about the victims and their background, their history, the method and manner of death, autopsy reports, crime scene photos, everything that was available from an investigative point of view. What we didn't want is suspect information. We just wanted to take an objective look at all of the cases to see what we thought, if they might be related or not, and the type of offender that we thought might be most probably involved in committing these crimes.
Let's get to work.
McCrary did not presuppose that the crimes were linked. He examined the similarities among the cases to see if they were unusual enough to have been committed by one perpetrator. He began to look for a behavioral thumbprint, a criminal signature in each of the murders.
A signature crime analysis is an assessment of the behavioral aspects of the crime, which can in some cases be a single event, but more often it's a constellation of behaviors that are consistent from crime to crime to crime. And this allows us to link crimes together behaviorally based on the behavior of the offender.
Yes.
McCrary looked for patterns. He examined everything known about the 11 women. How similar were their lifestyles? Almost all the women were prostitutes, except for the first woman slain in Prague.
This is a map of Vienna.
A companion last saw Blanka Bokova on September 14, 1990, leaving a bar in Prague, Czechoslovakia. Bokova worked as a sales clerk at a butcher shop, but was known to trade sex for favors. body was left on the bank of the Vlatva River in a stretch of woods near Volkova's home. The killer had strangled her with her own nylon stockings. He left her naked, covered with sticks and twigs. He threw her clothes and identification in the river. The first victim Austrian police found had been a registered prostitute for 10 years, Ida Marie Hammerer. In the early part of her career, she had suffered several violent attacks from customers, so she was known to be cautious. Hammerer was last seen outside a parking garage on December 5th, 1990. Like the first 5 victims, Hammerer was found in the woods close to water. They all had restraint bruises on their arms and wrists. And autopsies found no semen on any of the European victims. To the profiler, this suggested that the killer struck out of impotence. He was terribly insecure about his masculinity. When he could not perform after being sexually stimulated, the killer lashed out in anger. He strangled the women he blamed for shaming him. Then he left their bodies in humiliating positions. Next, they focused on the LA murder victims. Did they fit the pattern that had been established in Europe? Shannon Exley was found face down in a grassy area near a freeway exit. She was nude except for a t-shirt and a pair of socks. She had been dragged 50 feet from the pavement to the location where she was discovered, after being strangled with her brassiere. Again, this crime, like the others in LA and Europe, showed the killer had preferences, and that the violence itself had become erotic to him.
It became clear that there was a pattern to these homicides, that there was sort of a ritualistic behavior that occurred in each of these crime scenes. Each woman was similar in nature, either a prostitute or a woman who traded sex for favors. They were on the street when they were contacted, when they were picked up, very easily, very surreptitiously. No one really saw these women get into a car. They were transported out to an area. They were murdered, later just strangled with an article of their own clothing, disposed in a similar manner in an outdoor setting, absence of sexual assault. From where she was placed.
After a week, the study of the victimology convinced McCrary that there had indeed been only one killer behind the 11 homicides. The FBI agent and the Austrian detective spent the following week drawing up a profile of the assailant. The evidence suggested the killer had a good degree of mobility. He was older, intelligent, sophisticated, and an organized offender. To criminal psychologist Tom Mueller, this described Jack Unterweger.
I would say Jack was a very, very good example for a typical type of organized offender, and I would say he was a typical example for a natural psychologist. He was able to understand the needs of other people. He was able to come close to other people, to listen to other people, and then to manipulate them.
But the geography worked against the theory that there was one killer. The murders had occurred in Czechoslovakia, Austria, and Los Angeles. With minor exceptions, most serial killers stay regional and prey within a comfort zone. But enough time had elapsed between the slayings to permit one culprit to move around. Now the profiler compared Unterweger's travels to the chronology of the murders.
And when I overlaid Jack Unterweger's timeline on the timeline of the crimes, they fit perfectly. And that was really a dawning moment, the aha moment, the moment that's really exciting an analysis like this, because now you have a suspect whose movements correlate perfectly with each of the homicides, as well as his prior homicide that he's been convicted for, bearing a lot of similarities to these homicides. We can put him in each place at each time these crimes occurred. And either Jack Unterweger was the unluckiest man in the world to have been there, or he was an excellent suspect.
In Austria, Unterweger continued to enjoy his freedom and notoriety. Some women still found him appealing, even though the former convict was a prime murder suspect. This perplexed Detective Fred Miller.
One of the interesting facets of Jack Unterweger was that he could carry on a normal relationship with a female and still be this cruel and murder other females.
High school student Bianca Mrak was one of those that fell under his charm. The impressionable 18-year-old met Unterweger in a wine bar where she worked as a waitress. She was flattered by the attention from the celebrity writer. He told her he was tiring of all the publicity in Austria and might leave the country, maybe to Switzerland. She agreed to go with him wherever he went. And August 1992, Agent Greg McCrary of the FBI worked with Austrian detectives to solve a series of 11 murders. 8 women were killed in Central Europe, 3 more in Los Angeles. All circumstantial evidence pointed to celebrity journalist Jack Unterweger as the culprit. Then they received a phone call from the University of Bern. Austrian lab technicians had completed the fiber analysis of clothing confiscated from Unterweger's apartment weeks before. The inspection had yielded results. Fibers from the lining of the brown leather jacket matched those on the body of Heide Marie Hammerer, the first prostitute found. It was hard forensic evidence that tied Unterweger to one of the victims. But investigators wanted to conclusively link the suspect to all the victims. The FBI had another tool that could do just that, VICAP, the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program. The computer database holds the details of 10,000 solved and unsolved U.S. homicides. A programmer inputted the particulars of the European and Los Angeles cases. Details of the victims, their manner of death, locations where they disappeared, and where they were found were all fed into the computer. McCrary ordered an extensive breakdown, a multi-dimensional search with 15 cross-criteria that could show if the crimes were connected. 48 hours later, the detectives were called back to the VICAP room to hear the answer. The results were stunning. The computer statistically linked all 11 slayings. Jack Unterweger was the killer. The FBI had given the Austrians solid proof for their case. But Unterweger was still at large. The Austrian detectives immediately returned to Vienna. Armed with the FBI profile, authorities issued an arrest warrant for Johann Jack Unterweger. Again, the police descended upon the writer's residence. But Jack was gone. He had abandoned his flat. Geiger called his office and ordered his team to check all of Austria's ports of exit. Within hours, all train stations and airports were canvassed. But they found no sign of Unterweger. The serial killer was gone. Unterweger had already fled with Bianca Mrak beyond the reach of Austrian authorities.
Jack Unterweger is a very good representative of an intelligent psychopath. He became an award-winning author and playwright. But psychopaths are very, very manipulative, and they have a supreme ability to con other people.
Hello? Hello? Yeah. Yeah, listen here.
On a stop in Paris, Jack called into television shows and protested his innocence.
Yeah, it's obvious.
He said his flight was not an admission of guilt, but an attempt to evade a frame-up by the police. He promised to return to Austria and answer all questions if the arrest warrant was withdrawn. Despite his media appearances, the Austrian police had no idea where Unterweger was hiding. In Vienna, investigators interviewed Unterweger's friends. They were unfazed by the fact that he had been indicted for multiple murders. They said that Jack had run off for a holiday in America with Bianca Murak, a former waitress from the wine bar. Bianca was known to live with her mother, so Geiger paid a visit to Mrs. Murak. She acknowledged that she had been in contact with the fugitive couple, sending them money via wire transfers. They were in New York and heading down to Florida. Geiger told her to contact him if her daughter called again. Mrs. Murak agreed. Just days later, she got a call from Miami. Her daughter needed more money. Mrs. Murak promptly informed the Austrian police. U.S. Marshals were waiting at the Western Union. The Marshals ID'd the couple as they drove up.
U.S. Marshal, you're under arrest. U.S. Marshal.
Unterweger was quickly apprehended. He was jailed in Miami to await extradition. Both the nation of Austria and the state of California wanted to prosecute him. LAPD Detective Fred Miller began conferring with his Austrian counterparts.
After Jack's arrest in Miami, we dealt almost on a daily schedule with the Austrian authorities, trying to put the information they had on their murders together with the information on the California murders. The Austrian authorities made trips to Los Angeles. They provided us with whatever materials we needed, photographs of the crime scenes, information on their victims, information on Jack.
The Austrians wanted to prosecute Unterweger in their court for all 11 murders. But they knew that would be difficult. The Austrian public perceived Jack as a celebrity. Detectives would have to convince them that Jack's private evil side was the reality. Special Agent Greg McCrary explains.
What's interesting with Jack, if you look at different pictures from different parts of his life, many times he's Natalie attired with a bow tie and has this almost young, innocent-looking face. But then if you see him with his shirt off and you look at these really diabolical, involved prison tattoos that are typical of the more violent psychopathic offenders you have in prison, you see the dichotomy between Jack's outward appearance and the inner psychopathology becomes more apparent.
The LAPD detectives obtained a search warrant for tissue samples from the prisoner. In Miami, a technician drew blood, took hair samples and swabs of saliva for DNA testing. The samples were sent back to a Los Angeles lab for analysis. His DNA matched that found in the semen from Shannon Exley. But Exley's body contained semen from 6 other men. And there was no sexual discharge found in the other 2 LA prostitutes. Jack Unterweger worried that he would be transferred to California, where a death penalty was possible. He did not want to die in the gas chamber. But if he went back to Austria, he could be tried for the crimes on both continents. Criminal psychologist Tom Mueller explains.
If an Austrian citizen is committing a crime wherever in the world, the Austrian law is responsible for that guy. So the American authorities gave the clearance to bring Mr. Unterweger here back to Austria.
But Unterweger could delay this by fighting extradition. LA detectives pressured him. They assured Unterweger that he would be found guilty in California and reminded him of the state's death penalty. Fearing the gas chamber, he agreed to deportation.
You signed the extradition.
Despite the evidence, he still enjoyed popular support at home. And Unterweger believed he could persuade a jury that the authorities were wrong. But the Austrians were betting on the FBI profile. When Jack Unterweger returned to his native Austria, he faced 11 counts of murder. 7 women were killed on Austrian soil, but the laws of the Central European country allow its citizens to be tried for crimes committed anywhere in the world. The murder indictment had done little to diminish the writer's support in the media. As he sat in jail awaiting trial, Jack continued to lobby the press that the police had framed him. His case saturated the news. In this highly charged environment, Austrian prosecutors prepared for trial. If they wanted to win, they had to present an airtight case. LAPD detective Jim Harper journeyed to Vienna for the trial.
The OJ case here in LA is the only thing I can kind of equate it to. It was that big over there. It was all over the newspapers, headlines. I mean, and when we came into this town to testify, it was a big deal. We were all over the front pages of the paper, the whole deal.
The trial was held before a 3-judge tribunal. The prosecution argued their case with minimal physical evidence. They were counting on Agent McCrary's behavioral profile.
So it became increasingly important to link these crimes together behaviorally. That really was the only way that Jack could be linked to this entire series of crimes. So that became the critical component in the prosecution of Jack, and where we were most able to assist the Austrian authorities.
McCrary related to the judges what he had deducted at Quantico. The killer always chose prostitutes, or those who traded sex for favors. He was criminally sophisticated, older, at least in his late 30s. He wasn't panicky or disorganized. He possessed inner rage, but it was very controlled. The victims had bruises on their wrists as if they had been restrained with handcuffs. McCrary was convinced Unterweger would ask the prostitutes to wear them to fulfill his sexual fantasy. But it was about control. The killer wanted their hands secured to prevent them from resisting.
The bodies were found.
McCrary's testimony linked the victims together.
Where they were laid.
Across 2 continents, the trail of deaths followed Jack Unterweger. Where he went, women died. While he visited Los Angeles, 3 prostitutes were murdered. And their slayings mimicked those in Europe. Shannon Exley and the other 2 American women were strangled to death. The offender used their brassieres as ligatures. And Unterweger tied the knots on the ligatures in exactly the same way as he had on the ones in Europe. McCrary pointed out that the probability was infinitesimal that more than one killer committed the crimes.
And what are the chances that more than one offender would be not only choosing to ligature strangle a victim with an article of her own clothing, but he would tie the knots in exactly the same way. Very, very remote chance that we've had different offenders committing a crime in that manner.
But the defense argued there was a difference. The victims in Los Angeles had been strangled with their brassieres, and women in Europe had been strangled with their pantyhose. But McCrary countered that European prostitutes do not wear brassieres. What mattered to the killer was that he used an intimate article of the victim's clothing. LA criminalist Lynn Harold was asked to compare the knots from the pantyhose to those from the bras.
In the case of the pantyhose, you had one leg. The second leg was double backed on itself and used as the third segment for the weaving or braiding in a manner extremely similar to one of the bra cases where the two pieces of elastic formed two segments and the left strap was pulled through as the third braid.
In all, the trial lasted 2.5 months. On June 28, 1994, a jury in Graz, Austria, found Johann Jack Unterweger guilty of 9 of the murders. The remaining victims were found too badly decomposed to convict Unterweger beyond a reasonable doubt. The verdict meant life in prison to a man who swore he would never spend another day behind bars. And he never did. Unterweger strangled himself with a nylon cord stripped from his uniform.
We normally think of suicide as coming from depression or someone who feels shame or guilt or remorseful in some way. This is not at all what was going on when Jack committed suicide. More psychopathic offenders like Jack do it to exert control. And it's the last great defiant act of it that he exercised to wrest control of the situation away from the government, away from the authorities. He would not allow himself to be imprisoned for the rest of his life.
Jack Unterweger proved that serial killers are not just an American phenomenon. European law enforcement agencies realized that to fight criminals of this sort, they would have to follow the FBI's example.
What we learned that
I was led to contemplate what no mortal should see. The veils of the firmament were torn before me. I witnessed the fall of those who swore allegiance and betrayed the Most High. The clock of heaven is nearing its end. Signs are before everyone's eyes, Errol, but few see them. Prepare yourselves, for the cycle is about to be fulfilled. Time of judgment has been sealed, and this is where the story begins.
Mighty angels fell from the heavens in a flash that tore through the clouds like a fiery sword. They breached the sacred boundaries set by the Most High, broke God's law, took wives from among men, and fathered giants whose strength and arrogance made the mountains tremble. Enoch was taken up to heaven, beyond the veil that separates the mortal from the eternal, to behold what no ordinary man should ever see. the deepest secrets of the fallen angels, the hidden chambers of creation where primordial light still breathes, and the divine judgments that would shape the destiny of all humanity. But where there is revelation, there also comes the crushing weight of truth. And what Enoch discovered was a war between worlds. Angels descended to earth, forbidden pacts forged in darkness, and corruption so vast that it aroused the burning wrath of the Creator. This is not just the story of a chosen man. It is the account of an ancient rebellion, of the fall of immortal beings, and of a final judgment that would forever change the destiny of heaven, earth, and all that breathes under the firmament. Write, Enoch, so that future generations may know the truth and prepare for what is to come. Enoch, Enoch, son of Jared, you who have found favor in my eyes, hear my call.
Lord, what do you ask of me? I am but a man, fragile before your greatness.
I have chosen you as my messenger. What is hidden will be revealed through you. Arise, Enoch, and follow the messenger who will guide you.
I am you, guardian of God's eternal mysteries. Walk with me, Enoch, for I will show you the secrets of the heavens. I will also show you the truth and the corruption that has spread across the land like an incurable disease.
And Lord, this surpasses everything I imagined. What place is this?
You are on the threshold of heaven, but not all that you will see will be radiant. Some truths are dark, Enoch, and wound the spirit. Write what you see now and what you will see later. But remember, this knowledge is a burden. Few will accept it. Many will reject and mock it. Do you accept this destiny?
If this is God's will, I accept it. Even if my heart breaks, I will write what must be written. May the Lord give me strength to bear the weight of this calling.
And so the secrets of heaven were revealed. But at what price? These are the words of Enoch's blessing, with which he blessed the righteous and the chosen who will live in the day of tribulation, when all the wicked and ungodly are removed. Enoch, a righteous man, whose mouth was opened by God, had a vision of the Holy One in heaven, and this is what he saw.
I had a vision about future generations. Not for this generation, but for a distant future. It was about the chosen ones, the elect. I spoke about it and wrote for them.
The Holy and Great One will come from heaven. He will tread upon Mount Zion and appear in his camp with power. He will be revealed in his celestial strength. He will come with 10,000